Welcome to Leaders Gotta Lead. Join our leaders and hosts, Dan Gomer and Scott Harshman, as they bring you powerful strategies and insights to help you lead with purpose, impact, and unstoppable success.
Welcome back to another podcast, another episode of Leaders Gotta Lead. Dan and I are here today with one of my good friends, James Dreiling. He's actually my financial advisor as well. One of the smartest people when it comes to money. So I love the piece of that where he can help manage my money, takes me out of it. He leads me in the money piece. So I feel like there's a lot of different styles of leadership, and James was a great opportunity to bring him on today to pick his brain on leadership and things like that. So we're going to pick his brain a little bit as well. And in a background of James, he has a couple kids. He's been a youth coach. He also manages people's money. So he helps make people more money and save money for retirement. He also leads a team. He's part of philanthropy groups as well, multiple different things there. Anything that I'm missing? This resume that military background as well, 8 years in the Navy. So this resume that I'm building for you is super long. Anything that I'm missing?
Well, he also has 4 pieces of paper hanging behind him as well. So he's been to school a little bit, maybe too.
Yeah. So welcome on, James. Appreciate having you join us today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
Did I miss anything, though, first and foremost, before we get into this?
Get the main points. I'm not a guy that generally wants to brag on myself, so I'll let you handle that side of it.
I appreciate that. Well, leaders got to lead. The big thing that we always want to bring on is leaders in different aspects, learning on what you consider are good leaders, what you've learned to be the best leader that you are, and understanding that there's a lot of different types of leaders out there. Whether we want to believe it or not, people are leaders in some capacity, whether they're leading themselves, leading their family, leading their spouse, leading a team at work, whatever it may be, people are leaders. And Dan and I came together with this show and wanted to really just talk through it because we believe that leadership isn't talked about enough. So that's the whole premise of this video or of this podcast itself. So I want to open up the first question is, James, what does an ideal leader look like to you?
First and foremost, again, thank you guys and I'm honored that you guys would even think of me to have me on here. And leadership is something that's always been super important to me. And I think to some degree, some people, it comes more natural than it does to others. And I totally agree with your comment. Even if they're leading themselves, everybody's leading something, right? But certain people have different knacks. And I think that as I think of leadership, I thought about looking it up when you asked me to come on here, but when I think of that, it's inspiring people to work towards a common goal, right? It's the ability to inspire people. And how do we do that? It's different, right? All 3 of us are dads here, right? So we've got to be able to lead our kids in certain ways or lead our families. You mentioned the financial aspect, you mentioned the military aspect. We all have these different levels that we're leading in. Sometimes we are the leader, sometimes we're sort of the co-leader. And so I learned a lot in the military of what good leaders and bad leaders were. I learned that most people are more managerial than leadership. And so when I think of leadership, though, I think of people that are able to inspire other people to do something, right? Whatever that is. And it might be as simple as getting a group of buddies to go out and go grab beers, or it might be leading your team in work, or whether it was in the military or your kids. Again, there's just so many different levels of leadership and styles of leadership, right? And so for me, I think it's the ability to inspire people to do something. And I don't even mean when I say a common goal, that could be a bad goal. Think back through history. There's lots of leaders that Adolf Hitler, right? Arguably a pretty good leader.
We brought him up before.
but a real tool bag, right? Not a good human being, but he knew how to inspire people. And frankly, sometimes leadership can be blurred with more of a, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Manipulating, right? Sometimes I believe Adolf Hitler was a manipulative leader, right? And he did things for the wrong reasons where, again, that's just sort of, you can use those powers, the force can be used for good or bad, right? We've all seen Star Wars, so it can go both ways.
So I'm curious with your military background, right? Just looking at, because in the military, right, there's all sorts of leaders. There's a hierarchy,
Yeah,
right? So there's just
very
the
much.
leader of this. So what were some of the things that you saw in your experience in the military from leadership that really inspired you, maybe to be a better
Mhm.
leader,
Sure.
or it was just like made you want to like strangle somebody, right? Somebody who was doing like a bad job versus somebody that was doing a really good job. What would you say delineated those groups?
Yeah. The military was an interesting environment, guys. You don't need to be a good leader to outrank somebody else in the military. And I think that that was one of the most challenging pieces of the military. And in the military, and I don't know, you guys have maybe heard this before, but I've often explained authority, in my opinion, can be broken into two categories, right? You have positional authority and relational authority, right? Relational authority is what we should all strive towards, but positional authority is extremely necessary in certain circumstances, right? And so in the military, everybody has positional authority to some degree, except for the lowest ranking guy or gal, right? Everybody has some sort of authority or positional authority because I outrank you, so you go clean those toilets. Fair enough, right? Relational authority is a very different story. And we can relate this with our kids, right? When our kids are little, positional authority is incredibly necessary to keep them from getting hit by a car or sticking a fork into the light socket, right? Do it because I told you to do it because I'm your dad, right? But that stuff wears off, especially as our kids start becoming teenagers. And that's where relational authority is so critical. And this is true of our teams. This is true less so in the military, because again, that was very positional. But relational authority is do it because you don't want to disappoint me. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because it's for the greater good, right? And so trying to establish that relational authority early on, whether it's with a new team member, and this isn't about being best friends with your staff or your whoever, right? But it's relational authority. It's the interaction that Scott and I have. I have no positional authority over Scott and his finances, but I do have relational authority because he trusts me, right? And he knows that I have him and Krista and the kids' best interests in mind, and I care, right? And that's what it's all about. And in the military, you asked about good and bad, right? The military was probably the one of the poorest examples of leadership in my entire life, frankly. And I know that'll sound like, whoa, wait, what? But here's the problem. The worst leader that I can ever think of was when I first checked on to the USS John Young. Okay. And I had this guy that was in charge of me. He was EW2, and he ran the shop because the other guy had just left. And that's the other thing. There's so much turnover, right? You serve your 4 years of sea duty and then you're gone. And now you got a new leader or whatever you want to call him. But this dude, I don't know if he was picked on in high school or what this guy's deal was, but you talked about wanting to strangle somebody, and that was this guy, right? That was this guy. He would get, if he knew he had that positional authority on you, he was the worst, probably, leader that our team ever had. Our production suffered because of it. He was very vengeful. You'd find yourself, I mean, one time we pulled into port, we had been out to sea for 3.5 months and had not seen land. And we pull in and he had some vendetta to pick with me. And he was like, hey, you were late 2 weeks ago, 3 minutes to the mid-watch at midnight. So while we all leave to go drink beer in Australia, you're going to sit here and needle gun and chip the paint off in 95-degree weather, right? That was one of those examples where you're like, I want to put two hands around. I'm not going to, right? I'm not going to get myself in trouble, but he was in a leadership position, but he knew nothing about leadership. He knew nothing about inspiring people, right? And then there's other guys like Senior Chief Young, kind of a crazy dude, but he inspired people, right? He was relational. He understood that, and he taught me a lot of things. You've all heard the eagles fly with eagles and crows soar with crows, and that's what he would always say. But he taught me a lot about being just responsibility, if you will. I remember one time coming to work and I had a flat tire, and I knew this guy was no joke. You're not allowed to be late. And so I carry this tire in with me. This tire, it's got a hole in the side of it. I'm only 10 minutes late because I got a flat tire, Senior Chief. And he's like, guess you should have left 15 minutes earlier. And I thought, fair enough. And some people might view that as what a jerk. But for me, it hit home. And it's something that still resonates with me to this day. But frankly, Dan, I would tell you my 8 years that I spent in the Navy, I don't have a lot of stories of great leaders that were in that environment. We think of that because it's the military, but it's very positional versus relational. And I feel like the best leaders are the ones that have that relational authority. And I no disrespect Scott by saying that, but nobody wants a cream puff leading them through their financial future, right? You need somebody to grab you by the hand and say, hey, man, I got you. This is where we're headed, and it's going to be okay. And that's what Scott and I have. And I feel like we have with a lot of our clients, and hopefully with my kids and a lot of our team and everybody else.
Well, let's clarify a few things real quick, because first and foremost, I told you to tell me what to do with my money.
You did.
Being in the financial world on the mortgage side of things, I come to you with a lot of crazy stuff, right? I know there were so many different times I'm like, hey, what about this Fannie Mae stock? Right? They're not privatized. You can't do it. They're going to get privatized, which I think will help out interest rates. So
I think
Fannie
so too.
Freddie, they need to become privatized. But you're 100% right. Having somebody that will have the ability to have the accountability to it, right? So I think that that's something that's super important. So you talk about relational as far as being a relational leader. You didn't learn that in the military, because every military show, Dan, I'm sure you could probably agree to this, but any military show that I've ever seen, when they go through boot camp, they're just getting yelled at. Go do push-ups, go run, whatever it may be. You're just getting yelled at, and that's not the relational style. So where did you learn the relational style, and when did you realize, or has there been a moment where you're like, I'm kind of being a quote unquote dictator, I'm not being relational as a leader?
No, great question. Again, I think that, like I said, I think certain people are just born with it, right? As a little kid, that's just who I was. Like the kids in the neighborhood, I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, and so I had to adapt pretty quick and learn to be a bit of a chameleon. And as I grew, right, it wasn't always for the best purposes, but I would lead people into the wrong stuff. And frankly, some of us would get in trouble for it. And so I think that there is something about being a natural leader. I really do. I believe that that is the case. And here's the deal. Let's not get it twisted. I am still probably, if you could be a 50-50 positional to relational authority type of a leader, I think you're winning, right? As an 8-year military dude, and a lot of times like, just do it. I don't want to talk about why. I just do it. So I don't necessarily know that that was a learned behavior, but when it came to, I guess, fruition in my mind, and really when I was able to put it into perspective, it was probably 2012 maybe, or 2013, and I was at Bear Valley Baptist, and Jim Walters was preaching, and he went through positional versus relational authority, and that really planted the seed in my head to go, I want to learn more about that, right? And so I really started digging on that and really honing. And so for the last 13 years, I've really tried to work on more of that relational style of leadership versus early on in my career, even, it was just hard for me. If somebody said, hey, I want to pay off my house, I would fight them tooth and nail. Like, this does not mathematically make sense. This is ridiculous. Like, we're paying 3.5% on a mortgage. Why on God's green earth would you pay that off? That's free money. But I just couldn't, in fact, that they needed to do that to hit the pillow and sleep good at night. Right. And so I think with that relational authority side of things, I think that you've got to be able to maybe step out of your own skin sometimes and realize, like, look, this isn't all about me. And I think the challenging area to do it in life is with our kids. I really do, because with your kids, you have to have positional authority when they're little, right? To keep them safe, right? And you can't explain everything that you're telling them to do every single time you're doing it, or you would be exhausted, and so would they, right? But as they start to transition, I think it's maybe between 9 and 11 years old, and they start to like really be able to, you've got to have that relational authority with them. And I think that might be one of the most challenging pieces of it. With team members, I think it's a little bit easier, but it's just something that I try to always aware of, Scott, to say, look, where am I at? Which side am I on right now? Am I Am I exercising positional authority or relational authority? And do I even have the ability to get, because once, like I've got some buddies and all they did was positional authority, and boom, all of a sudden their boys were 16, 17 years old. And it's like that whole do it because I told you to mentality. No mas. He's like, look, I'm bigger than you and you can't tell me what to do anymore. Right. Whereas in the military, it's like, I outrank you because you have to. You're going to stay on board while we go drink beer and you're going to suck it up. And that was just kind of the way it was. In the real world, that's just not reality, right? That's not how real life works when you're interacting with other people who don't have to do what you say and the same thing with employees, right? They're going to leave. They're going to go find something else to do, right? So you've got to, in my opinion, like with team members, and I think that this is something that a lot of my colleagues and a lot of the business, I work with a tremendous amount of business owners. Everybody's number one struggle is their staff, their employees. And I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what you do for a living. If you're a boss, your number one headache is usually your team, your staff, your employees, whatever you want to call them. Right. And so there's little things, right? Like I don't ever refer to any of my employees as employees. Never. Right. They're always my team members. If one of my clients says, hey, you're secretary, I'm like, I don't have a, right. I'm not saying that no mistakes. A secretary is a totally, prestigious job. And, but I have team members. You're talking about my team member, Kim, you're talking about my team member, Trevor, right? These are all professionals. They could go get a job like that somewhere else. And so I think it's critically important to find out what motivates people, right? What is it that brings them to action? Because I found that when it comes to like team members, there's usually 3 or 4 motivating, right? You got time, you got money, right? You got impact, and those things all play in. So when I think about time, if I'm interviewing somebody and I'm like, hey, our office is off of Lucent and 470, which by the way, we're about to open that office. We're getting our final inspection today. So we'll have an office right in your guys' backyard now, right? You know those 3 big business right there? We're moving into that one of those on the 5th floor. It's pretty sweet. But if I'm interviewing somebody and they live like, Dan, you said you used to teach up off of Highway 36 in Pecos. If this person lives up there, are they really going to be happy driving through Denver Metro traffic every single day to come to my office? Right? I've got team members where money is not their driving factor, right? The husband or wife enough money to where that's not really the driving factor. It's the autonomy to go be with them. A lot of people, time is a big deal, right? Money, and then the impact. What impact are we on people? So I just think that, again, I know that was sort of a roundabout way to answer that question and not necessarily as precise. I don't know if I hit what you were asking, but that's kind of where on that.
And I think what is important to note there is, I heard you say there's an innate ability that people have as leaders. And in fact, John Maxwell, we talked about this before we started this. John Maxwell wrote a book called High Road Leadership, and actually talks about in that book kind of that visionary mindset. Like, a lot of people have that visionary mindset. Like, it's just kind of and really important trait of a leader. However, it is a learned skill as well. And so I heard you say that, hey, you kind of had this natural, when you were younger, to be able to inspire people, not always for the best reasons, but regardless, you had to inspire people. Me, on the other hand, I did not have that ability. Nobody was following me. Nobody wanted to give 2 whatevers about anything I was doing. And yet, over time, my experience as a father and as a team lead and all of these things, I have developed these skills over time. And what I heard you say as well is, there were holes, there were the things where you're like, man, I could do that better. So, I think it's really important for anybody that's watching this to understand that, yes, there is innate skills, just like there is in anything when it comes to leadership. But at the end of the day, it is all learnable behaviors. And so anybody who is watching who's like, man, I want to become a better leader, but because I was in this position once, I want to be a better leader. I want to be somebody who people want to follow, but I don't know how to begin. So where would you recommend for somebody to begin to hone their skills as a more relational leader?
Yeah. And again, I want to discount the positional leader. of it either. Like I said, I think if you can aspire to be a 50-50, you're winning. Me personally, I come from authoritative background, positional, authoritative type of the Navy. So sometimes, and my kids would attest to this, like thankfully, I believe I have relational authority with them, but they would probably beg to differ sometimes, right? It's dad's way or the highway. But I think it's you say that, Dan, because I don't know if you guys have ever seen Glenn Ross, but the whole ABC, always be closing. Like my thought process is always be learning, right? And you mentioned these plaques and stuff behind my virtual background head here, but and I think that's important, right? You got to be a student of your game. You got to be an expert in your field. That's something that I respect so much about Scott is, his industry can be transactional, but that's not him, right? It's not his team. Like he's legit. He's always so I agree 100% with you in the sense that these things can be learned, and I am continuing to evolve and learn. Like I just finished Elon's 21-hour autobiography, fascinating book, right? But I learned like, holy cow, like this dude is something else. I don't know if you guys have read or listened to Extreme Ownership, Jocko Leif Babin's good book. Darren Hardy's a great, I mean, whether it's David constantly listening. So yeah, but yeah, the habits clear, all of them, whether it's Napoleon or Stephen Covey or, right. I mean, 7 Habits of People, like all these books, right? I mean, podcasts, right? Started listening, believe it or not, I told you I don't have any socials, but I just started listening to podcasts and I'm like fascinated with some of the stuff of just trying to sharpen the axe, right? So many of our nose to the grindstone and we get so busy run, chase whatever our craft is and perfect that. Don't take a step back and work on ourselves, right? And so it's kind of a book, but I just listened to this one called The 5 a.m. Club, and it's about owning your morning, right? Own your morning, own your day type of a deal. So get up early in the morning before everybody else is up, right? Pick books that are not for your brain, because that's the truth. Darren Hardy said it interesting one time. He's like, we're so focused on obesity in this country and diabetes and how we're clinically obese. He's like, and we're so focused on what are we feeding ourselves and our bodies? He's like, but what do you feed your mind? He's like, if you go to bed and the last thing you're watching is the local news and the murders that happened in Denver, chug a milkshake right before you go to bed. He's like, and then if you yeah. So he's like, and you get up in the morning, you open up the newspaper and flip on the Today Show. He's like, have 3 donuts for breakfast. He's like, because what we're feeding our brains is every bit as important as what we're feeding our bodies. And frankly, sometimes more important, right? Because if you're not in the right headspace, how are you going to get up and go work out and have the motivation and everything else to keep your body in shape? It's a tough living in, right? Everything's coming at us at 1,000 miles a minute. It's not like when we were kids, this horrible stuff in New Orleans and you know about it in 30, whereas it used to, that wasn't the case, and so tough with our too, we've got to shelter them. But to answer your question again, ABL, always be learning, right? Pick books, find people. The other thing I do is I try to surround myself with people that make me better every single day. Back to that Eagles, I think I talked to you earlier, Eagles soar with Eagles and crows walk around with crows, right? Every chance I get to hang around with my childhood friend, Mark Montoya, if I get an opportunity to go out and go pheasant hunt with him and spend a full day, I mean, that's gold. That's my bank right there. Because those kind of guys like you guys, right? Every time I spend time with Scott, right? Surround yourself with other leaders because I don't have all the answers, which is why your podcast exists, right? I get to learn from you guys. You get to learn from me. And then all of a sudden you're like, dang, I hadn't thought of that. I'm going to put that in place. And that's the biggest thing. It's positional or relational authority. Positional authority is easy. Like I'm in charge, do it, cassette, right? You either have that or you don't. That relational authority is how you really, really motivate people to move the same direction.
I love it. So I'm going to kind of shift a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of what we talked about too. Like during this time of the year, right? Like we're early on in the 2025. Everybody's talking about goals, goal planning, goals. We do planning. And this is the first year I believe in goals. Okay. So I'm not going to say I don't. But this is the first year where I took a step back and I said, goals are great, but what's the action behind the goals? And where I'm going with this is Dan's a big proponent of this, I know, but the action will lead to the goals. And even if you don't achieve the goal, you still have the action that helped get you to that goal. And let's say you have a goal to make $1 million and you make 700. Did you really not achieve your goal? Because have you ever made 700 before? Right? Like that's where I kind of look at some of the stuff. So where I'm going with this question though is like leading your team and planning with your team and creating action items for the team that everybody can get bought into. We talk about vision, we talk about things like that. So how do you incorporate relational leadership with your team to set goals so everybody can achieve and feel like they're a part of something?
Hey guys, Dan Gomer here with the Leaders Gotta Lead podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you are enjoying the content, and if you are, I've got great news because there's more where that came from. Just click on the link in the show notes to discover new ways to plug into what we're doing, to find new content that we're putting out, and to discover how we might be able to work together to elevate your leadership game. Just click on the link in the show notes and let's take our leadership success to the next level.
Okay. So interesting question. And I'm going to kind of roundabout way. I promise whoever's listening to this, Scott has no idea. We did not pre-plan this one, but it's funny that he just asked me that because I was just asked to speak like 2.5 weeks at our planning rally for our 2025 new advisors. So generally it's our under 5 advisors. And they said, hey, can you come in and speak on how the Dreiling Financial Group goal plans and what type of, do you set? That's really not, I didn't really tell. I don't think that's going to give them the most bang for their buck. So I showed up and they didn't know what I was going to talk about, which was kind of fun. And I didn't talk about, I told them, I said, listen, every single year is about the what are you going to do? That's your goals, right? The how you're going to do it. So what, when, and then when, right? When is 2025 here, right? Wherever your feet are, be there. I told these folks, I got up in front of like 85 people and then who knows how many online. I was like, look, they wanted me to come talk to you guys about your what today. I said, but if you walked in this room and you don't have your what by this point in time, you're already set up to fail. If you don't know what you're going to do next year, you're set up to fail. So let's talk about the how and the why, right? And so I think when it comes to goal planning, the first question you got to ask yourself is why? Why am I going to do it? And why is my team going to do this?
That's right? Dan's favorite question is why.
I think why is my English language.
Amen. I keep getting the God bumps thinking about it. I'm in Mexico right now. I promise you it's not cold. But like, why are we going to do that? And why? And this comes to inspiring people to move in a common direction towards a common goal. Why? Why does my operations officer, why does my chief or my chartered financialist, why do they care that I want to make 7, whatever the number is? They care about my what, right? And so you've got to make sure that we're aligning your what with their why. Follow me on that. And therein lies part of, because their why generally doesn't align with your what, right? What you're trying to, how does that benefit them? Yeah. So we've got to make it about them, right? And that's kind of what I went into and talked about was the why and then the how. How are you going to execute, right? So for this particular group, I hit on 3 things: urgency, confidence, and communication, right? That was that particular presentation that I didn't make up on the spot, but I just kind of winged it, kind of like going today. Fun. This is fun for me. I don't like the whole package stuff. But again, I think that, Scott, to answer your question, you need to have your what. That's critically important, right? I do believe that. But if you don't know what your why is and you don't know what your team's why is, those things are not going to line up, right? And so that's where it's critically important to sit down with those team members, figure out what their why is. Hey, you know what? This year, we're trying to have a baby. We want to buy a house. We want to do this. We want to, okay, well, cool. How do we have those things? We're trying to achieve a team with what they're trying to achieve as your team members, right? And that's where a lot of times we as the leaders, we have our own what, we have our own why, and we have our own how, right? But for my team, I'll give you an example. My chief operations officer, she's always had a pretty healthy bonus built into her compensation that was tied to our production, right? And for her, that wasn't. And I read through it here and I sniffed it out, and I'm like, hey, something's off. And she's like, I don't like stressing towards the end of the year if I'm going to get a bonus or not when I have zero control over if we're going to hit those numbers at all. And so it was important for me to realize that and then help coach her to say, look, you actually do have some control, but you're absolutely right, right? Like it's up to me to get people to do what they need to do to better their financial futures and for us to hit our production goals. But you don't really, other than processing what's happening and making sure that they're having a white glove concierge level experience, what else are you going to do, right? You're not a hunter, so what else are you going to do? So I've had to figure that out. And so this year, 2025, no more bonus structure. She wanted that built into her base salary. And I said, okay, and she's trying certain things financially that's going to help with. And so it's understanding what is there, right? And then helping achieve like commingling the what in it. So I don't know if that answers that question, but I think it does.
It definitely does. And piggyback off of that, and I'm sure you have a question, but I have to piggyback off of this because I think it's relatable to all of us. Do you still have your leading?
I do.
Okay.
Really challenging.
Now you know where I'm going with this. 1099 salespeople, right?
Oh yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know what 1099 is, they're self-employed. So really like the dictator leadership does not work on because they can literally just up and leave and go anywhere else that they want to. So how do you incorporate that relational goal with them? And you might even say the same thing, understanding what their what wow is, but how do you really help hold them accountable?
Yeah.
As a leader, relational leader.
Yeah. And here's what it to is, again, spending the time is, I will repeat it. We've got to figure out their why is. What is why are they? I mean, sales isn't easy. So why are they doing it to begin with? And usually it relates back to one of those things. What is their true motivator, Scott? Are they in autonomy? They want to go fly fishing on Wednesdays without anybody asking them a question? Are they, I got to make $1 million guy or gal? Or are they more of, hey, it's the impact that I'm making on people? And so trying to figure out kind of what is driving that, I believe, is step one. And I think that's not it isn't, I think that when you bring forward and you kind of learn that, the more to know that person. But I truly believe that it takes, you do have to have those accountability factors to say, okay, well, listen, in order for you to achieve your what, in order to achieve your, here are the things that you need to do, right? And so you and I talked a couple months ago, I think, about, and you sent me over some spreadsheets and tracking spreadsheets and things. So I think it comes back to some of the things that you're already doing, but to let the audience know what some of those things are. It's tracking their activity, right? We all know that activity is going to lead to sales. And if you're not doing the activity, you're probably not going to get the sales, right? So are they, and coaching into how do you become better, right? How do you create that white glove concierge level experience with your clients? Are you following up, right? Are you just sent out thousands of dollars worth of whatever? I don't even choose and pick who that goes to. Like, I don't even know. Right? Because again, I don't want to. I'm not sending out, but it's not what I do. But we've got marketing people that that's all they do. Like, I know that you do an incredible job. I've got a set of grill where I can go and flip my burgers and bratwurst because Scott sent me something, and it's about the things. It's how do you keep motivated? I think it's you've got to be relational and probably third, but you still have to have that positional authority. So I know you said you can't have that, but you have to. If those people have no accountability, all of a sudden people are lazy by nature, right? We all know that. Like, we all are, right? It's easier to not go to the gym than go to the gym. It's easier to not read that book or read this garbage book than it is to. So it's about making still, even with those 1099 independent contract sales folks, they've got to have a level of accountability. Guys and gals, you got to come into the office. I need to see you face to face. We're going to have weekly. So like with my team, right, we have weekly mentoring meetings every single week. I meet with every one of our sales folks, understand what cases are they working on, what have they done, what are they doing, how many calls have they made, how many referrals have they got. So that's that accountability piece, right? But then also, having that, like, look, do this for you. You're not helping me. I mean, it's great. At the end of the day, it's good, but this is about your why. If you don't know what your people's why is, not to keep beating Dan's horn here, he's loving it, but if you don't know what your people's why is, right, how are you going to continually inspire them and keep them inspired, right? And then the last thing I would say, it's kind of funny because I did mention I'm down in Mexico, but we come to the same resort. Like, these people love us here, love us. And my mom and my wife and everybody was like, man, unless you're around, they don't even come talk to us. I'm like, well, like, love on them. Love on them. Be gregarious, wrap them up in a big old hug, and not in a disingenuous way. That's not what I mean. Don't be fake. Like that, everybody will read through it if you're fake. But if you just love people and I'm not saying all, right? Some people are annoying or they don't smell well or whatever, right? Like, I'm not saying love them all, but like, if I see Scott and he's getting a big old hug, not because he's my client, but because I like the guy, right? Like, it's just be genuine, be human.
Well, I love that, man. I feel like we on that path too. I mean, there's a lot in there, right? About helping people help themselves, right? And being that leader that inspires people, right? Gets them to understand why it's important for them to do the things that are beneficial to them, getting them to like really conceptualize that so that the motivation to move forward. So just we're up on time, just to kind of wrap things up, of all, how people get a hold of you, I mean, they're looking to help them manage the money. I feel like we got a pretty good feel for like how you operate and how you might be able to help people with that. They want to get in touch with you. Number one, what's the best way for them to reach you? And number two, just maybe like some closing statements. Like, what do you, what kind of aspiring, I don't really believe in aspiring leader because we're all leaders anyway. So if you can aspire to something you already are, but anyway, somebody who is aspiring to be a better leader, what advice might you kind of leave here at the end?
Well, with regards to getting a hold of us, you can email us. You can probably emailing us, contacting us through our or call, right? Contacting us, the website is probably not I mean, we get a lot, and so my team does a pretty good job filtering through them. But if you just email me directly, we can get you dialed in, and that's just james.dreiling@nmnovembermike.com. So my first JAMES.DREILING@novembermikenm.com. Just email me and we can, whatever, even if you're not looking for financial advice, whatever. I'm a pretty altruistic dude as much as I can be. And so if I can help somebody out, I would love to do. And Dan, that good. Like, if you can walk through, I think just trying to be as altruistic as possible. Altruism is right, focusing on other people versus yourself. It's difficult, right? Nobody can be 100% altruistic. It's not possible. We would starve to death, right? It's just not. Human beings cannot be 100% altruistic, but we can strive towards it, right? It's almost like I Christian every single day, but I'll never be perfect. Like, that's just never going to be realistic in my world because there's no achieving that, kind of like altruism. But if you every single morning, and one of my prayers is, Lord, allow me to positively impact every life that I encounter today, right? That, and I truly mean it. Like, as cheesy or cliche as it sounds, allow me to impact every single life as positively as I can every single day. I think that's huge, man, because attitude is everything, right? If you walk through life, you have a choice every single morning. You can either choose to get up and focus on the negatives or the positives, right? My kids did this, my wife is that, the laundry this, da 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 da. Or you can get up and go, I am so blessed that I am in a position that I'm in. My kids are healthy. I'm born in the United States of America, or wherever you're born, right? Like, whatever it is, you have every single morning to either choose to focus on the positives or the negatives. We all have negative stuff, man. Right before I got on this podcast, I thought this older guy that I hunt with and hang out with, I thought he died. Honestly, I got a call from his bookkeeper literally 30 minutes before this podcast, like, hey, James, sorry to bother you. I know you're on vacation. Steve's not up. I'm not comfortable going up there. And I was on the phone, had somebody over there within like 6 minutes. Turns out he's just on weather, blah, blah, blah. But I could allow that to haunt me for the rest of the day and put me in a bad mood or whatever that's going to look like. Or you can go, thank God he's okay, right? Like, thankfully, thanks for day. You know, I got to take an hour out of my day to meet with Dan and Scott, or I get to take an hour out of my day to meet with Scott and Dan to maybe help somebody else out. And so I think that if you can wake up and try to focus on the positives every single day, it's infectious. It is infectious. I truly, and people read off of it. You can be a negative Nelly, or you can come out and be positive and look, the glass is half full, because we all have negative stuff getting thrown at us every single day. And we have a choice. Are we going to allow that to own us, or are we going to allow the positives to own us? And again, if you want to be a good leader, nobody wants to follow negative Nancy, right? Or negative Nelly. I don't know any Nellies, so let's use Nelly. But nobody wants to follow that guy or gal. So just make sure that you're waking up every morning and focusing on the right things.
Love it.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming on here, James. I definitely appreciate it. If you are needing help with managing money, financial advising, definitely reach out to James. James, what's an ideal client look like to you and your team?
Tons of money. I'm joking. No, kidding, but not kidding. So that's right. Again, Scott, this comes back to what my focus has been recently in my industry. You can either kind of be that sole practitioner that team and just does it on their own, right? Or you can be more of an ensemble type of an enterprise. That's been our focus over the last 10 years or so, is growing horizontally so that we can serve a diverse group, right? Because I'm 20 years into this. Generally, my client that typically I'm working with is pre-retirees, retirees. We do a lot of planning. That I would say is understanding the tax code and really how to take all this stuff that you saved throughout your working careers and that you've accumulated, and then turn that into a retirement paycheck, right? That's what people are confused about. I spend a lot, that's where this one, retirement income certified professional, I spend a lot of my time decumulating money. But we have a team to where if we have somebody that's in their, mid 20s or early 30s and married and trying to buy a house and needing life insurance for their young family or education planning for their kids, whatever it is, right? We've got it. That's where my sales force is really staggering that kind of age group through to make sure that we're serving a diverse crowd. So when it comes to everybody thinks, I got to have a ton of money to have a financial planner, and it's just simply not true, right? The best thing you can do is start young, start early, right? Get hooked up with somebody you can trust that's got your best interest in order, that's not just going to sell you some stuff. And so that's where we have a team of advisors that can serve whatever age group from 80 to 18, frankly, so.
I love it. Albert Einstein, the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. So start young.
Start young. And compound interest it happens on the back end. So if you skip those first 3 years, you're really costing yourself 10 on the back end. It's incredible. There's a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Great book. Scott, I think I had turned you on. Scott's turned me on to some good books throughout the day. That's the other thing, is always be learning, right? Read. The best leaders, the successful people I know on the planet, their bookshelves are fuller than everybody else's, right? That's the truth. But yeah, compound effect. That's
right on. Well, James, thanks so much for being on here today and for sharing so openly and honestly experiences in the military and as a team lead and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of nuggets in. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us and humor us. I know you're on vacation and being on the show, so we really appreciate you. Thank you. And
I appreciate you guys
as well.
Heck yeah. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate humbling, and thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, So thank you everybody for checking out the episode of Leaders Gotta Lead. We're going to continue to have people like James, giving their feedback about to be a real leader, because as James said earlier, there's no right way to do it. I think at the end of the day, if we're just trying to be a better version, then that's really all that counts. I'll be learning. I think that's maybe one of the best ways to put it. And so Scott and I are always trying to, partner with great leaders, find whether it's a guest on the podcast, you want to just connect with us and talk about leadership. We're always looking to just get more people about this topic. So if this is resonating with you, feel free to reach out to Scott or myself anytime. We'd love to talk to you. So once again, thanks for watching. James, thanks for being on here.
Heck yeah, you guys.
All right.
Leaders gotta lead out.